Hello, hello, and welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a weekly yarny podcast where I, Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, answer your yarny questions. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I cannot even begin to believe that we're like halfway through January? You guys, it's gone too fast. I'm not ready. I have yet to feel like we've settled back into routine. I think I told you my kids have lots of days off. Throw a snow day in there. It's just been craziness. Complete and utter chaos. So, I'm glad to be sitting down with you for some relaxed time. So thanks for being here. I hope you have grabbed yourself a beverage, a project, so that we can chit-chat and relax a little bit. Or that maybe I'm keeping you company at a time when you're having to wait for something or something like that. Today I am so excited to share with you officially. This was a long time coming. It's a long story. It's fine. We're not going to go into it. But my Delilah collection is finally out. If you've been with me from the beginning, I talked a long time ago about a project that I was so excited about. It was like causing me troubles, and then I figured it out, and I was so excited to teach it to you. And then other things got in the way. But I have a whole collection here. So we're starting out with tier 1. I have cozies. This is such a fun texture. And this stitch creates a really nice thick fabric, which is lovely for a cozy. Very squishy. So that's tier 1. Learn the stitch with this. Then I have the cowl. This is what I was so excited about, you guys. I had been eyeing this Mobius construction for a while, and it had kind of baffled me. Not necessarily the what. I live with sciencey people and mathy people, my boys and my husband. Both enjoy those things, all enjoy those things very much. Me less so. So I kind of understood the concept, but I did not know how I was going to apply it to crocheting, and more importantly, how I was going to easily teach it. And I figured it out, and I'm so excited about that. So that was the thing I figured out. So this is the cowl. After you work the cozy and get real good with the stitch, you can work the cowl and learn how to do this Mobius method. It's really not that hard, and once you get started, it just goes. You're working around the top and the bottom at the same time, and so it grows from the center out, which is just so much fun. So I'm not going to go into it too much. I have a whole video. I've decided to do something new with my patterns this year. And that is, I've always enjoyed sharing what's gone on in the process of the patterns, but I was talking to some friends and they were like, well, you need to blog about all of them. And I was like, I don't really love blogging. I mean, I do for some stuff, but I'm much more comfortable just talking about things than actually writing it down. I find that lots of typing exacerbates my hand pain, which I'd much rather be spending time crocheting than typing. So anyways, so I'm gonna do little introduction videos for each of my patterns so that I can tell you the story behind them and talk about the yarn and really share styling tips and everything with you on those videos. So I'll link that in the description below because I've already rambled on about this plenty. But one of my favorite things to do with this cowl is, because of the shape, just throwing it on is so simple. But it's gotten really chilly here, and so I am wearing both of my cowls at once. And it's just the coziest. I tuck the little one kind of in the big one. It's just so cozy. I love it a bunch. And then there are hats. Hats in 4 styles. Brimmed fitted, brimmed slouchy, brimless fitted, and brimless slouchy. This is brimmed fitted. This is brimless slouchy. I give tips on how to wear the slouchy hat in my introduction video. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, there you go. Links to the patterns below, links in the description or the introduction video. I really hope you'll go watch it. I had a lot of fun making it, and a lot of fun stuff to share. So, yay. What is bringing me joy, guys? Joy and less joy is snow. We had so much snow last week, and it was so gorgeous. It wasn't just like, well, actually, we had almost every variety of snow you can have, but the first variety of snow was the kind of heavy, wet snow that thankfully stuck to all the things but didn't break all the things, because sometimes that snow can get really heavy and then like tree limbs can fall down and whatnot. But it was like just enough to coat everything with gorgeousy floofiness, like it looks like a fairy tale. And then we got more snow and more snow, and I say, and looking at the snow and watching the snowfall always brings me so much joy. What I didn't love about it is that my husband went out of town, and I woke up one morning last week while he was out of town, and sorry, I have like a little fuzz, and every time I blink I can feel it. One morning when he was out of town, I woke up to snow on the ground. So I had to single parent get the kids all together and go out and shovel the driveway. And it was not my favorite. It was not my favorite. So kudos to all the single parents out there. It's a lot. A lot. You're amazing. You're doing great. Even if you're not a single parent, you're doing great. All right. Small businesses. I've got back out my cheeky ceramics mug. I'm obsessed with the sheep and the colors. That's my lipstick. Again, by Rin of Cheeky Ceramics. They do amazing work. Highly recommend. And then I have some new earrings to share with you. If you watched my introduction to my WIP Wrap Up video, sorry about that, then you have seen these before. But they are just the cutest little earrings. They've got like a plaid on top and then like a pine coney, I guess there aren't really any pine cones, like pine branch, I guess is the word I'm looking for, on the front. And I don't know if you could see it here, but in person, like the top is, painted in colored red, and these guys are actually green. So it's hard to see because it's a real dark green. So it's kind of subtle, but it's so pretty. And so here's the story. I got the earrings. I ordered these earrings. I got the earrings, and I went to put on the earrings, and I realized that instead of, see how the earrings are mirrored so that the pine branches can sit like on the same, both in towards my face. Oh my gosh, that was hard for me to say. I pulled them out, and it was two of the same earring. And so I messaged the owner of the Etsy shop that I got them off of. And I just sent her a picture and was like, hey, I think there was a mistake. And she was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I will immediately send you out a new one. And I was like, no big deal. And instead of sending me one new one, she sent me two so that I had two sets. And so I'm giving away a set for WIP Wrap Up. If you don't know about WIP Wrap Up, I'll tell you in a minute. But also I'll link a full video explaining all of WIP Wrap Up. It's not too late to join in, and we're having a blast, so I highly recommend it. I do want to say, if you are like, I don't know, Sarah, that shop owner made a mistake. I don't know if I want to risk shopping and maybe getting the wrong thing. Here's the deal. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes every day. It happens. We're trying our best. From what I gather, she is a lone business person, like many people on Etsy are, doing her best to do all the things. And I don't mind people who make mistakes. What I mind is when people won't admit they made a mistake and they don't fix it. I had an experience with another designer, and she made several mistakes. Totally fine. It happens to the best of us, no matter how famous and how many people we have working for us, and whether this is our part-time gig or our full-time gig, we all make mistakes. It's fine. But this person would not admit that any of the mistakes were made were hers, and never, because of that, never did anything to make them right. And I'm like, never, ever, ever am I working with you again. The person I will work with again is the person who is like, oh, yep, my mistake, let me fix it. Because that's what you should do. So the earrings are by Honeyglow Designs. I got another pair of earrings from her that were wonderful and perfect. They're springy, so I'm saving them for later. I really have to stop doing this. Guys, I opened up her shop today to get the name to make sure I was getting it right. And already I'm like, oh, those are cute. Ooh, those are cute. Stop it. So Honeyglow Designs, go give her a like and a follow, and yeah. All right, I've kind of like muddled small businesses and announcements together. So let's just continue forth with announcements. WIP Wrap Up is still going on. There is time to join in. We're having a great time. There are prizes like these gorgeous earrings. Not these. These are mine, but I have another set that I'm going to give to somebody. There's yarn. There's amazing products from Tuft Woolen. I'm giving away some little notions and stuff that I've accumulated. It's lots of fun. All the links below to join in either the Facebook or the Instagram. It's just great motivation. You guys, I cannot believe some of the projects that people are finishing up. Entire blankets. It's really just fantastic. And we have a few people who are finishing up Christmas presents. So don't feel bad. We have people who had like 3 WIPs. We have people who had like, I don't know what the top one was, way over 20. So it's just fun. It's just fun. I have another, you guys, I overdid January. It got out of hand, but we'll talk about that next week. I have another new pattern coming next week. It is the Winslow collection. Yes, it's a whole collection. That is how it got out of control. More details to come. So keep an eye out next week. I'll do another introduction video. Those are going to come out on Thursdays because that's when I release my patterns to my email. And those are my announcements. I have already rambled so much. Oh, no, wait. I have another announcement. Okay. I told you last week that what was bringing me joy was reading books in the evening, reading a book in the evening. And look at me, I remembered to bring it with me this time. So I'm so excited. I've been reading at night before I go to sleep. It's been marvelous. This is the book I was reading. And I say was reading because I finished it. I'm a slow reader. If you want to hear all my baggage on that, watch last week's video. I started this last year, so it's not like I finished this book. Though, I mean, a normal person probably could have. It's not super hefty. I'm going to give you just a real quick review. This was a great book. It was an extra slow read to me because this book was written, let's see if I can find the copyright date. This book was published in 2019. So like yesterday, right? Doesn't it feel like yesterday? So a little while ago. And so what the book is about is Clara Parks gets a bale of hay? No, of yarn from a friend of hers. And then she takes it through the whole process of like shearing it and scouring it, and really looks in depth about the I'm just gonna say process twice, the process of processing wool in the United States. And she has it spun, she has it dyed, and she tells all about it in here. And she talks about the people who do the work, and she talks about the processes that are used. She's funny. It's fascinating. I think even to people who are not as obsessed with yarn as I am, that you would enjoy this. The reason it was a super slow read for me, though, was every time she mentioned a new company, I was like, Google it, see if they still exist. Because I was just curious. You know, it's been a few years, and it's been a few hard years. And she was already talking about the decline and how so much stuff had gone overseas and how it was hard to keep a yarny business running in the United States. And I'd been seeing so many people go out of business. So it was like every time she mentioned a scouring plant, a yarn dyer, a wool mill, I was like, okay, set it down, get out my phone, tippy tappy, see if they're still around. And one of the mills was in Wisconsin, so I was extra curious about that. They are still a working mill. They're looking to sell their mill, like their spinnery. I don't know what it's called. And I'm like, no, we're not moving to a farm halfway across the state to spin wool. I don't think my husband would be on board with that. And it sounds like we would need some mechanical knowledge that we definitely don't have. Anyways, so I do highly recommend this book. Lots of fun. Like I said, even if you aren't like a die-hard yarn person, it was fascinating. So this is another book that I started before the holidays. Really, I was like, I'm gonna do more reading, and I did more reading for a while, and then the holidays hit, and it was just like hair on fire constantly. So I did not do a lot of reading then. But I am a person who loves a good cover of a book, which I will confess, this has been sitting and has had coffee sat on it a few times. You can see I've spilt and like warped the cover a little bit. So I'm a sucker for a beautiful cover. I saw this. Where did I see this? I think I got these at Half Price Books. I love going to Half Price Books and just like reading through the backs, the descriptions of the books, and looking at the covers. So this is a 3-book series. I got the first 2 before, before the holidays. And then I was looking for books. The little one and I have just finished reading the Fudge series for probably the 4th time. And then we needed some new books. So I was just like searching for books that are good for kids his age. And I saw the 3rd one of this came out. So I ordered that as well. So I'm going to get back into these. You can see I'm a little ways in. Do I have normal bookmarks? No. I use sticky notes. I do have a normal bookmark. What does this say? It's a sticky note that says underwear. I don't know why. Okay, maybe I'll put a real bookmark in there. Underwear. So I think I'm going to get back to this. I think I remember what's going on in the story enough to just keep going forward. I love reading young adult and kids books. I don't know. They're just enjoyable to me. I like a good adult book every once in a while too, but not a very serious reader. So this is what's next on my, I was going to say shelf, but really nightstand. I just pile books on my nightstand. I also have a book about raising teenagers that I really need to start reading because that's all I'm going to say about that. So maybe I'll try to go back and forth between reading those. We'll see. Reading a book about raising teenagers does not seem super relaxing before bedtime, though. But I heard the author on a podcast, and I really liked what she had to say. So maybe it would be like a good, like, oh, okay, I can do this. We'll all live through it. Sort of thing before I go to bed. All right. I think we're ready for questions finally. Sorry. I real rambled. All right. Question number 1. Thanks for your advice last week. It was super helpful. I've decided on a couple projects to frog, but I'm not sure what the best way to do it is. One of them is pretty big. Help! Okay, perfect. First of all, yay you. I love that you have chosen some things to frog. That's great. That can be a hard choice, and that's amazing. So, for those of you who don't know, frogging just means you're going to unravel it. So, the first thing I want you to consider, especially on the big project, and don't come at me because I know that this is wasteful. But also, sometimes the first thing you have to protect is your mental health. And so my first question is, do you want to reuse the yarn? And or is the yarn in good enough shape? And are you willing, do you have the physical, mental capacity to frog it and donate it somewhere? If the answer is no to both of those, you don't want the yarn, and nobody else is going to want the yarn. You know, you got it at a garage sale and it's crazy scratchy. Something got spilled on it and it's stained. My friend, this is your permission to just throw that whole thing away. I get that it's wasteful, but sometimes it is worth the quick win and release of it just being gone. So I'm going to encourage you to think about that. If you do enjoy the yarn and you want to either give it away or donate it or reuse it, then you do need to unravel it. Some people will unravel and recreate at the same time. I am thinking of my friend Ashley. I'm pretty positive that she had crocheted this sweater like almost to finished and then was like, no, I don't like it. I have a couple friends who are notorious for like being real fine with, I don't care how much work I put into, if I don't love it, I'm just going to be done with it. One of them tends to throw things away. I'm not telling that story. We don't have time. I've already talked too long. Anyways, so I'm almost positive that I remember Ashley. She had a sweater, I think it was, that was almost done. She didn't like the sweater. She wanted to use the yarn for a different sweater. And so she literally just set the almost finished sweater in, grabbed the end, the live stitches, and started crocheting the new sweater as she was uncrocheting the old sweater. You can absolutely do that. So if you're like, I have this, I don't know, let's go real big. Let's say blanket. I have this blanket. I won't use the blanket. Or like, I could see this happening. You started the blanket before you knew about gauge and you just dove in, and now instead of a lap blanket, you have like a queen-sized or king-sized behemoth, and you're like, no, I just want something to sit on, wrap up in when I'm on the couch. So maybe you're going to frog that, but you're going to make another blanket. So you could absolutely set the old blanket down, and just start making the new blanket with the old blanket, or making the sweater or the hats or the whatever from the old blanket into the new thing immediately. If you don't want to do that, you could just put that away until you want to do that. Or you could unravel the whole thing. The fastest way to unravel any project, but a big project especially, is to get out a yarn ball winder. If you don't have a yarn ball winder, they're not super expensive. Lots of people have yarn ball winders, but not Swifts. I have both, and I love them and use them quite regularly. But also I'm a designer, so what do I know what normal people do? But you hook the live end to the yarn ball winder, and you just crank and unravel it, and skein it up, cake it up at the same time. Now, if it's a lot of yarn, and if it was, I'm thinking of like a commercial yarn that came in like a, you know, like the Pound of Love or something like that, the real big skeins, you're not going to get that whole thing on your yarn ball winder. So you can either start on your yarn ball winder and then just keep wrapping around, or you can wind by hand. I have a tutorial for that I'll link below. I will caution you when you unravel, as you rewind into a ball, whether it's a cake with a yarn ball winder or winding it by hand, make sure you're winding loosely enough that you're not stretching the yarn. I have an old project that I really stretched the yarn when I caked it up, and it went from like a fingering weight yarn to more like a lace weight yarn. And I don't know if there's any coming back from that, and if there is, I'm not sure I'm willing to put in the time. I think I'm just going to use it for a fun project. I'm not going to toss it, but it's not going to go into what it was supposed to. Anyways, you don't care. The other suggestion I have about frogging is it is really helpful to weight your project down as you frog it. So you'll find as you pull, if it's a bigger project especially, you're doing this a whole bunch. And if you can set the project down, put something heavy on it, and use both hands to pull the yarn apart, and then wind up into a ball, and then pull some more, that's helpful. So that'll make it faster. I hope that's helpful. I guess my other couple suggestions are, do not unwind. Okay, random thought. If it's a blanket, I wonder if you could still get like the Christmas tree spools, and you could wrap it on a spool like that instead of, you know, like if it's a whole bunch of yarn, you could wrap it on a spool like that, and then it would all be together, and then you wouldn't have to try to either cake it or wind that very large amount of yarn by hand. Might be worth looking into. Dang, then what was I gonna say? Oh, I know. Do not unravel the whole thing and then try to wind it into a ball, or you will end up with knots. So many tangles and knots. So I do really recommend to unravel some, wind it up however you are planning on doing it, unravel some more, wind up, unravel, wind. So that's my suggestion. From a great number of experiences of unwinding yarn and getting knots in it. This just came to me because it's something I did yesterday, and that is if it's two yarns held together, like if you held a yarn double or something like that, I do recommend separating them out when you frog. They're never going to work up the exact same way as when they started. So I'm working on a project that I'm holding 2 yarns together. I had to frog a couple times. And so as I'm pulling, like I'm frogging the yarn, then I'm pulling it apart in 2 separate piles. And then I have 2 balls that I'm hand winding. I'm winding up one, I'm winding up the other, I'm frogging more, I'm separating it out. It was a process. I'm glad that it was just like a couple swatches that I had made, and I miscalculated one time and had to start over, but that can be a bit more challenging. So that's less fun. All right, I think we're ready for question number 2. Here we go. I have a project that I'm not going to finish, but I love the yarn. I'd like autocorrect, sorry. I'd like to frog it and reuse the yarn. As I started unraveling, it's all curly and crimped. Is that okay to use? Do I need to straighten it out? If so, how do I do that? Okay, so this one kind of piggybacks on the last one. So you already know the answer to one of those. Is it still okay to use? Yes. There are people who feel very strongly that they don't want to use the yarn that is crimped. The reality is that you're twisting and knotting the yarn when you use it, whether you're knitting or crocheting. And so when you unravel it, unless you work and immediately unravel, it's pretty likely to not be like a flat, straight, nice piece of yarn. Do you need to straighten it out? 2 reasons you might want to straighten it out. 1, we'll see if I stick with 2. 1, you're having trouble working with it. If it is so crimpy that you literally are like, it's in a tangled mess and I can't, it doesn't slide through my hands, I'm having a hard time tensioning it, then it may be worth the hassle of straightening it out to work with it and enjoy working with it. 2, I think a lot of people like to straighten it out because it's like nails on a chalkboard. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it just like, my youngest has a lot of these sensory things that he's just like, ooh, I don't like the feel of that. He got an art kit for Christmas and it had one of those blending sticks in it that it's like paper and then you like rub it on the paper to blend what you're doing. And he was like, oh, no, I won't be using that. I do not like the feel of that. And I was like, yeah, I get it. So if you feel that way about the yarn being crimpy, then you're going to hate doing it. You're going to hate using it the whole entire time you go to use it. So that would be worth. And then if you're not going to block your final project and you're finding that it is affecting how your stitches look, you probably want to do it. However, I might encourage you to consider, if it's not bothering you to work with it like that, it might be easier and faster to just make what you're going to make and then block it. Even if it's just a steam block, that will help release. It's the moisture in the air, the moisture in your skin as you work with it, that's putting the moisture that's already in the yarn, that's what's putting the crimp into it. That as it sits in the formation it's in, that moisture in there causes it to hold the shape, whether you block it or not. So that's that. You could also be noticing that it is really genuinely affecting your stitches. Not just like to the point where like it looks funny now, but it'll block out fine, but like to the point where like, again, it's like kind of mucking up your your gauge and your tensioning. And so some stitches are big and some stitches are little. And what you could do for that, if it's not bothering you to work with that, but you're concerned about the final project, you could make a swatch and block it and see if that all blocks out. If it all blocks out, fine. And then make your project and just block your project. Okay, so how do you straighten it out? Is what you want to do is to straighten it out and then work with it. You're going to need to unravel your project, and you're going to need to put it in a hank. The hank is the big, it's like this. Let's see if I can show you this without undoing this hank. I think I can. Oh, look at that. That'll be, okay. So this is a hank. What this is when you untwistify it is just a big loop of yarn. And because you're not going to sell your yarn, your hank doesn't need to be a specific size. When I rehank yarn, which I do irregularly, not very often, is I get out my Swift, I set it up to about the size of a normal hank, which they're not all the same, and then I just like loop an end around one of the V parts, and then I start spinning it and letting the yarn wind back around. So it's like I'm reverse caking it. I'm putting it around the Swift to make a big loop of yarn again. Once I have all of whatever I have of the yarn on the Swift, then I re-put in some ties. So if you have hanked your own yarn before, you've probably seen these guys, and you can see it here even a little better. See how it goes kind of through that, the strands of yarn. What that does, first of all, you just cut a length of yarn. It doesn't have to be super long, and it can be any yarn. I'd be careful about anything that might not be color fast because we are going to be getting this wet. So I might not do hot pink. I'm just saying. I'd avoid reds. They tend to bleed. Maybe like a nice gray leftover, something or other. Doesn't have to be even the same weight of yarn as what you're hanking back up. And you're going to, so if my yarn is going this way, right, you're going to loop it over the top, go about a third of the way down, open up a little opening, cross them over, go down about a third of a way, cross them over again, and tie them in a knot on the other side. What that is going to do is keep your strands of yarn in that circle, that when you go to wash them, which is what we're going to do, they're not getting all jumbled up into a tangled mess. Once you have, I would recommend three ties on your skein. When I open up a hank of yarn and there are 3 on there, I'm like, oh good. When I open up and there's only 1, I'm like, oh crap. Because that's most often when there are knots, is when there aren't enough ties, because the yarn can get more tangled. Anyways, so you're going to make your hank. You're going to tie at least 3 ties. Don't go overboard. 10 isn't going to help you. 3 is plenty. You're going to remove it from the Swift. You're going to run some water and some wool wash because you've used this yarn, so it's probably at least a little dirty. Don't be grossed out by it. It's just how life works, I guess. I'm like, nature? That's not really nature. I don't know. So a clean sink, some wool wash, put your hank in there, lay it in, let it be, let the yarn get fully saturated, so at least 15 minutes, and then drain your sink, push as much water out as possible. I would do just like if I was blocking a sweater or anything, I would then take it out onto towels and roll it up and squeeze as much yarn out as possible. As much yarn, oh my gosh, as much water out as possible. Sarah, get it together. And then I would lay it or hang it to dry. And once it is dry, it should be straight again. And you can either cake it back up or hand wind a ball. If you're like, well, Sarah, I don't have a Swift. You can, the size, like the circumference of your hank doesn't matter. So you could wrap it around the back of a chair. I'm trying to think of what else you could wrap it around. That's like a decent size. Maybe like the end of a coffee table or something. You don't want to do it around the middle of a coffee table because how are you going to get it off the legs? I don't know. Maybe you could. Be creative. It's fine. I needed a mini skein for a project and I didn't get out my Swift. And so I said to my little one, come here, hold your hands up like this. It was just a mini skein. It was only 20 grams. And so he did. And I put the thing over his hands and I start winding the ball. And he's like, Mom, what? This is too much. I can't do this. And I'm like, well, you don't have to hold your arms out. You can hold them like into your body. I'm like, but you can't like drop them down or it's going to fall off. Eventually he ended up laying down on the floor and like sticking his feet up in the air. He's like, I should have done this from the start. And I was like, yeah, is that easier? So if you have a patient, someone in your house that will hold their arms like this, make sure you're comfortable, because especially if it's a whole skein, that's going to take some time. But you could do hands, legs, I guess. Doesn't seem comfortable to me. Or anything else you see that's about that size. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed these questions. If you have a question of your own, there is a link in the show notes below. Look right below this video. Like, you got to exit out of full screen if you're in full screen, and then there's a more. Click the more. I've given you all the links. I never want you to have to search for anything. And one of those links is to a place where you can ask a question. I just ask that you ask your questions there because it keeps them all organized for me. So that's very helpful. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy crafting.